We are live.
All right, welcome everybody. This is the select board meeting of July 18th. We're starting at 6:35 to open the meeting, and we'll do that as we normally do with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and we move on to the roll call of board members. Dave Hemingway, Chair of the Select Board.
Marlo Herrick.
And unfortunately, Dee is not able to be with us due to a family issue. That moves us on to announcements. Do we have any specific announcements?
Well, I do have a semi-announcement, but I need to ask the board about it. We've been invited by the Historical Society to have one of our August meetings in the meeting house.
Oh, neat.
And I was thinking of August 15th, which is the second Monday, the second meeting of August. And if you approve of that and want to do that, I will let Janice know.
August.
Bring your powdered wig.
Be cool if we dressed up.
So they've done that sort of thing previously?
Typically, they do it around Old Home Day.
Yeah.
They hold the meeting there.
Roy Fanjoy, previous selectman, we've had meetings up there and we were able to get clothing from the Concord Players Association and dress up back for the 1800s and stuff like that. So I recommend you go.
Mhm. I think that would be cool. As far as the dates, it's a normal meeting date. Obviously, we wouldn't have our
I was gonna say that would be.
same recording.
Yeah.
We could probably take, there is power there, so we should be able to take the other camera and record it. It just wouldn't be able to be streamed.
Oh, perfect, okay.
But we should absolutely be able to do that.
I will advise Janice.
Yeah, I
Does
think
that
it's
sound
awesome.
like the right date for you?
That, yeah, I mean, like you said, we're gonna be here, I don't care where we go.
Do we have a specific date for Old Home Day yet?
No, it's, do you know, it's, hold on one moment. Stand
Because I know
by.
I've seen a couple dates, but I think they've chosen the final one now. Probably for a while.
I think it's the August 20th.
August 20th.
Yeah, so we'd be
That's
15th,
perfect.
yeah.
That's the next following weekend, so that's perfect. All right. So I guess that's the announcement then. August 15th, we will be up in the historic town hall meeting house. I don't know what the proper name for it is, but that's close enough, I think.
The meeting house, yeah.
Do we have any other announcements?
I do not, no.
Do you have any further announcements? All right. So, in that case, we can move on to our appointments. Looks like the Personnel Committee is up first. And I know the other appointment was not going to happen.
That's right.
Which was for ballot clerks, as that was being held until some of the recommended folks were able to confirm that they really wanted that position.
I think we're going to do that at the next meeting.
Sounds perfect.
That's what it was, yeah.
So Personnel Committee and the Personnel Policy Update.
Okay. Well, I'm sure the members want to join me up here. As you know, the Personnel Committee consists of Bill Mitchell, Roy Fanjoy, John Clark, and myself. We've gone through the Personnel Policy Book, and we've made several recommended changes. Some of the changes are more housekeeping changes. And so I think, I did send it to you, so I hope you've had a chance to look at it. I will point out, in my summary, I made a mistake on the vacation from, changed it from 5 days to 15 days and not 10 days is what came out on so I've got an updated summary there for you both. Now, if you'd like to see, I've got personnel policies that have the markups on them. And I guess, did you want us to go through the items, or how would you like to do that?
I think for the sake of making sure that everybody can hear the recommendations, that we should probably go through basically the memo, and then if there are any further questions, we can dive into the changes.
I'll ask my other members, would you like to lead us through that, or?
I'd like to make a statement first, okay? The members on this committee have been middle management and so forth. I'm still in contact with a lot of other businesses on the outside and so forth, and I'm a member of Pennacook Rescue's executive board. And it's tough now getting employees. You know, we're not trying to give how can I phrase it, a real rosy policy here. But we want something where we can entice people to come to work for the town of Webster. It's getting tougher and tougher. I was just at a coffee chat this morning with the city of Concord, and they have openings. And before, where they would get 20, 25 people, now they're lucky if they get 5. One place, one fire department had an opening for one person, they usually get like 10 applicants. They got one applicant. So the changes I feel that we recommended in this policy are not outrageous. It's trying to induce people to come here and be a little bit competitive with other communities. I know people are going from one community to the other because the other community's offering a little bit better. You're in charge of the pay scale, the bosses are in charge of the pay scale, not us. We just were asked to look at this and make recommendations, and that's what we did. Trying to think of a little bit of the future and so forth. So truthfully, I don't think anything's really outlandish in this. I don't know about you, you're middle management.
The other thing too is in doing this, we didn't try to compare ourselves to Concord and Manchester. We tried other communities that are small like Webster, so that we could try to get people, but also keep them here, you know, by offering a little bit more, and not just the money part of it, but, you know, some of the benefit part of it. So that's why we came up with these, and we met several times to go over it and come up with these recommendations. But I think they're fair. They're not giving away the farm, but they're treating the people pretty good. And there are other towns right beside us that give their employees more than this. But, you know, we tried to, again, be conscious of the town of Webster, you know, the pocketbook, and also try to keep people here, because it's unusual to keep people for a long period of time.
I've always had this thing that I say, and I can't help but say it. Town employees, the employees of the town are the biggest asset for the town. It's not the buildings, it's not the cars, it's not anything, it's the town employees. And I really support the employees that work here. I also am mindful of what things cost and realize that we need to be mindful of that. But I just feel better saying that I really appreciate the people that work for this town.
Okay. I guess right before you go into it, I know we've got this that's suggested to us as the suggested changes coming out of the committee. Obviously, in any committee, there's going to be various debate, etc. Is it unanimous recommendation in this with all of the recommendations shown?
I would say there was, and there was some good, healthy debate about, you know, some of us didn't want to do certain things or whatever, and I would say it's the majority opinion of the board. The committee.
These are all majority decisions. There are a couple that I know I disagreed with, and I was overruled. But on the other hand, it makes sense to me, so.
Mhm.
And I've not been shy, everyone knows where
Yep.
my stand on
Yeah.
some things are.
All right.
I think my only comment will be as we go through this, I'm in total agreement with 32 employees. I know it's not easy, to keep people. I think the only thing that we have to be mindful of, and like you're pointed out, is the future, and that can go either way. You know what I mean?
Correct.
So, you know, is there was a statistic on the radio that, you know, a lot of people are job jumping right now.
Yep.
And they
Oh,
are,
yeah.
and we are thankful to our good staff that we do have here, so I don't want anybody to think I'm not saying that. But with that also being mindful, is there was a statistic that 75% of these people that jumped jobs said, oh, what did I do? So.
Wish they didn't.
Yeah, they wish they didn't.
That's
So,
happening
so
now, too.
we're gonna go through this, and, again, I thank you, I'm sure you do too, for putting the time in to
Absolutely.
doing this, is it's not easy. I always tell my guys all the time, if I could give you everything I had, I would.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just, we have to be, it has to be affordable, and if I gave them everything they wanted all the time, we might not have a business, so, but that's just the way sometimes I look at it more than I know you got your big corporations, and they do the number crunching all the time, and just like in a small town, we all have, passion, we know how expensive it is to live, you know, everything like that, so, I guess I just wanted to be mindful that I think there's two parts to this, of what's happening in our society
Oh,
right
yeah.
now, and what the future is going to bring, and keeping people here happy, but at the same token, making sure that we're not, you know, stepping too far out of the budget in a sense, and I'm not quite sure how that, budgetary wise, how that works when we change this, so.
Yeah, I guess I will simply point out that at least a large percentage of the things that seem to be in front of us here do not look like they are budgetary changes.
It's not gonna make
There's
a
a
big
few
deal if
things that
somebody's-
might, like vacation, if you're
Right, that's
scheduling
what-
other people, but in the majority of these, I don't think are going to really affect budget.
Okay.
We were very mindful of the budget, and I don't think it's going to ding the budget too badly. As a Webster employee, I'm very happy to work with the town of Webster. It's a very good place to work.
All right, with that said, who wants to kind of walk through
You
this?
go ahead,
Do you want me to?
please do.
Okay. So as I mentioned, many of the changes were for updates and so forth. So we began by updating some of the definitions on page 5. Under job anniversary, we put in the words full-time and part-time. Under the supervisor department, this may not make sense unless you're looking at the policy
That's it,
itself. But
yeah.
under the supervisor department head, we've removed the cemetery commission and added the town clerk, the fire chief, and town administrator. Open door policy, everyone felt it was important for people who had issues and wanted to talk with someone that it go in the proper channels. The employee's immediate supervisor first, then the department head, if that wasn't resolved, then the town administrator, and finally, an appointment with the board if the issue was still happening.
Can I just clarify one thing, just make sure I'm reading this right? A full-time employee is 52 hours a week,
52 weeks.
52 weeks, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
35 hours a week.
Yes.
And then a part-time employee is less than 52 weeks, there's 52 weeks, and then it's less than what?
35 hours.
35 hours,
35,
okay.
They used to say 32, so there was a gray area between 32 and 35, so we tried to clarify that.
Okay,
Yep, it looks like it's actually crossed out, oh wait, they're less than 34, okay.
Sometimes it's hard to see with the corrections.
Regarding the comments you just made about the open door policy, that order, I believe that is set to match our other policies that we just worked on earlier this year, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay. Otherwise, we might want to change the others to match if we change this
we
then.
tried to be consistent, but I thought those were the,
Perfect.
just back to the job anniversary, because I think this is I just wanna make sure I'm clear in my mind. So, what you're saying is, let's say you hire somebody, maybe, give me a synopsis of that.
I guess what we're saying here is everybody has a job anniversary, whether you're part-time or.
Oh,
full-time.
okay, all right, moving on, I was reading into it worse than that, okay.
My question for that job anniversary portion would be, based on the way that it reads, it's still, I don't think for full-time and part-time really changes the beginning, referring to the beginning date of employment. But I think it might make sense to look at the wording of something in the manner of beginning date of employment for current, I wanna say like current job, current role, et cetera.
Yeah.
'Cause
This one
that-
here
that
is
could
just-
We may
change.
have addressed that later.
We did, this is
Okay.
just under the
In
definition
policy.
part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was a good point, but I do believe we have it later.
Okay.
Yeah. Stand by.
Stand by to stand by.
We're up at page 7, under unit operating rules. Again, a minor word change. It is understood that it does not, and I should really find, so I can tell you where I am.
Okay, so it added that it may need to.
Right, it's understood that this does not pertain to a department's SOP procedure or policy approved by the select board for an individual department's special requirement. And Phil, you might be able to add more to that than I.
That was to avoid conflicts between something in here that went against the standard operating procedures at the police station, which is, you know, a few books about this thick that tell you basically everything that you're gonna do. So that's why that was put in there.
I think that makes sense. My question then, quickly reading through that full paragraph, is that the last sentence in that is where conflicts may arise, which is precisely what you're talking about. The policies and procedures contained in this document will prevail. So that would negate what you're trying to say.
That's a good point.
So there, we
why we
probably
keep it.
wanna look at, like, I understand now the concept, but I think we're gonna have to work on the wording for that more,
Okay, we'll address that.
whether that's committee
Seemed to
or
make
us
sense at
later,
the time.
or legal, whatever. But, yeah,
Well,
it makes
we-
sense what's trying to be
Yeah,
said.
correct me if I'm wrong, one of the things is, after you looked at this, and we had this meeting and discussion, the final draft and everything was to go to the town's attorney to be reviewed, to get their stamp, to bring up just what you said, okay, this might conflict with what you're trying to get across. Am I correct on that?
I was going to ask it to have it sent to the attorney, yes.
Correct,
Yeah.
before you
Yeah.
finally put the stamp of approval
Yeah.
on it.
And again, what we're trying to do is that this is the Bible document unless there's something within a particular department that needs to be stronger or in a different way. Page 8, talking about the hire date, and I think this is where we've addressed what we were just talking about. Talks about if the employee transfers from part-time to full-time, the transfer date will apply in the calculation of benefits.
So now give me an example.
Okay, Bill, go forward.
Well,
If you have an employee that you hire part-time and he or she has no benefits or minimal benefits and then goes full-time, then the date of hire of full-time is what would count towards full-time benefits.
Okay, so I'm hired and as a part-time person, and then, you know, there's a full-time position that comes available. That on July 4th, that is my new anniversary date for,
It wouldn't be, well, it would be for your benefit, for your full-time benefits, yes.
would start on that date, not when you were hired as a
Right.
part-time person.
Correct.
Okay.
And if you go into the retirement system, Okay, if you go into the state portion of the retirement system, July 4th is the date, whereas when you were part-time,
It is not,
it
okay.
is not.
Okay,
So
fair
we were
enough.
just trying to clarify that.
One of the things that I was trying to touch on when you mentioned the anniversary, this covers the kind of second part of that, which was the part-time, full-time. But how would that, for example, let's say you retire down the road in many, many years, and now Russ
Not
is
so many,
not the
yeah.
assistant, but is now the town administrator. That role shift, there's no change for, there's no change for the full-time, because both full-time. There is a definite role shift, which may have changes in salaries and/or, right now, we don't have any difference in benefits, but maybe some future board would do that. Obviously, we wouldn't want Russ to give up any of the things that like accrue over time when that shift would happen. But that's one of the things that I was trying to ask about in that first section, and how or if that needs to be codified anywhere as a definition.
Well, I mean, I don't think we considered that if someone is full-time and they transfer to another job that is also full-time, I would consider the original hire date as the,
Right.
as the anniversary date, or the benefit date, or however you want to take it. If their job changed and the board decided to do other things in addition to that, I think that isn't really affected by this. That's a different conversation, or a contract, or however you do it.
Yeah, that's why I was just trying to look at the way the definition was, to make sure it wouldn't prevent things like
Right.
that, and make sure that it wouldn't, for example, reset the benefits. So like, oh, I worked my way up for, 5 years on vacation time, and now all of a
Now
sudden I
that's no
have none.
vacation for you.
Hey, I understand where.
In the
where you-
state, that sometimes can happen when
Yeah,
you
I,
switch jobs.
I understand where
Which
you're
I thought,
coming
wow,
from.
who'd
It-
switch?
And that's what I
Right,
didn't want to
Yeah.
It's like when I was on the floor at the fire department, and then if I took the full-time position in administration, I did not have the same number of hours, vacation time a year, it accrued differently. But the thing was, they couldn't take away my benefits that how can I phrase it? If I had 300 hours, and now in administration, because I'm just doing a 40-hour week, they couldn't just take those hours away.
Right.
I had to use them, let's put it that way, to get it down to the 200 hours. That's
Meaning when you made the
another ballgame.
switch, let's say you had 300, you knew one that's only 200, you better
You're
use that
right.
100
You have to use the
before
100.
you went to the 200.
Right. Or what you do is you pass probation and then say, I'm retiring, and get the extra 100 at the higher
There's
salary
there's a
rate.
lot of stuff to it, isn't there?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. All right, sorry for the
No.
minor offshoot.
That's fine. I think we're on page 10 now.
Yep.
We added President's Day to the holiday schedule.
How many holidays does the town get now?
It'd be 12 with President's Day.
With 12?
Yeah.
We always had President's Day, and then it was removed and they added Martin Luther King Day. And part of it was, well, the state's closed for Martin Luther King Day, so it's hard to conduct business, we need to contact the state, but the same thing is true for President's Day. They closed for President's Day, so.
There are actually 11 holidays and one personal day that we call a holiday. We did not put in Juneteenth.
That's for another board.
I guess my question is, yes, we have these holidays, and some places do holidays like this, some places do, like, we have 2 or 3 holidays that are the major ones that everyone has, and then do floating holidays. What was the thinking for adding one versus keeping it versus doing floating?
I think we tried keeping along with the federal guidelines, what they picked as the holidays.
Okay.
We, believe me, we spent a little bit of time on this, and a lot of the businesses and everyone go with the federal holidays. And that's the way we looked at it.
All the other towns around us do another, well,
What, you're talking the personnel day?
well,
Or you
yeah, I
talking-
guess I'm asking what you compared that to, besides the feds, I understand
Well,
that part, but.
the personal day was one that we shot out there. You know, we had a lengthy discussion on that, and that's one where something happens, and all of a sudden, the person calls up, says, hey, I can't make it in today, I'm taking a personal day. There's no questions asked, you don't have to put paperwork in way above it, and so forth.
And that's always been a holiday as long as or a day,
Yeah.
as long as I've been here. And part of the reason was explained to me back then, if you're not really sick and you don't wanna abuse your sick time, and the policy back then was you had to submit your vacation request 20 days in advance, and you really needed a day off for whatever reason, and you couldn't do it, this gave you the option to take it off, you know, to have a day you can just say, I can't come in today.
Yeah.
You know, and there are other towns, and I know,
And that exists in our current
it's been there
personnel
for,
policy.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, but we still are adding one more day.
yes.
We're adding the President's Day, which if you went by the guidelines back in the sixties and seventies, you'd have two. You'd have Washington's birthday and Lincoln's birthday.
Yeah.
All right.
Page 11, and this is where we thought that we would try to make it more attractive for part-time employees. So we are suggesting that benefits be given to part-time employees on a prorated basis for vacation, sorry.
I need an example.
I have a part-time employee who works 15 hours a week.
Yep,
They could take a vacation of 15 hours. You know, if they want to take a week off, they would be paid.
for 15 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they had to be here for a certain length of time.
Yes, you'd have to.
We had discussed that. It's not that you just started in
Yeah.
February and then March, oh, I wanna take a week off, I can do it. No.
And we might need to add some wording to make sure we clarify that.
Yeah, but that was the thing, you know, if they've been a good employee and everything like that, there was a little bit of incentive to be a part-time employee.
Well, because I guess I can you look at part-time in many ways. Is it supposed to?
Correct.
Kind of saves you money, but also you may only have enough work for part-time. But then if you don't have something that looks good to a part-time person, they might want to take this job over here that's not part-time. So I mean, I kind of get it. So what you're saying is it's not like they'd get 40 hours. They would get whatever their part-time
Their part-time work
hours.
is.
I think we'll have to look in great detail, I don't think we should go into it right now,
Yeah.
but I think we're gonna need to look at that in great detail, just to make sure that it's done in the appropriate way and can't be abused.
Correct.
I also think that there's probably, some, minimum that should be put on it for like the minimum hours per week on average or something of that nature. So
Why?
that,
Why minimum?
because
Not- I kinda understood.
let's say you're
That's why I'm
dealing with
asking you.
someone that's 2 or 3 hours a week.
Oh,
You know,
Yeah.
if I'm coming in, let's say that I'm a part-time employee and the only thing I do is write a transcript of this. Should I really be building up vacation time? Probably not, because that's well, you're doing this job, we're paying you an hour, you know, every couple weeks. So I think there should probably be a minimum to relieve the paperwork hassle.
It's subjective.
But other than that, like, the concept is is good, but that's why I think we need to look at the details of
Yeah.
it further. Okay.
Wait a minute, I had a question. So if you're part-time, and is that all that would be all they would get? Is that they would actually be, the only thing they would be eligible for if they were part-time is to get that?
That would be
I call it a
like
week, but
their
let's
only
just say,
benefit.
their only benefit would
That-
be
that would be
the
like
fact
their
that
only
if you work
benefit.
15 or 20 hours, you could get
Yeah,
20 hours. I mean, you could take it out a day or personal day or whatever.
correct.
Okay, okay,
Because they don't get holiday pay
right.
or any of that. This is just a little caveat. That's all. And we had discussed, you know, they had to work so many number of hours before this was eligible for something like that. But you're the deciding factor on that one.
So we're gonna try to have a little more conversation about it as.
Yeah, like we don't have D here tonight,
Yeah,
and B, I think now that we're getting the full recommendation
Yeah.
and they're able to explain it, I
Yes,
think we should
okay.
probably have a
So we
work
get a time
session
to
with the
kinda-
board to.
yeah, think
We
about
expected
it.
you were gonna take some time
Okay.
Yeah.
well, that's why,
to suggest
Yeah.
differences or something. The vacation time accruals, which is on page 11. We're recommending that the years of continuous service between 1 and 5 be changed from 10 days per year to 15. And again, that's more in keeping with other communities.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was originally reading it as like 1 to 5. I'm like, wait a minute, what? But the way
Yeah,
that it's
the
accruing
strikeouts
makes
It-
sense.
it's
Yeah,
it's the strikeout.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
So you're going from 1 week
Oh, two.
to.
2 weeks to 3.
To 3 weeks, and then the 4 weeks on the time frame. And a lot of other communities are doing the same thing.
anybody wanna give me an example, make sure I got it full-heartedly?
I've been here a year, and
Yeah.
I can take 3 weeks vacation,
Once you've been here a year.
yeah,
And
As opposed to 2.
as opposed to 2.
And the other thing that I see changed in the table, which was also mentioned in here, is 2 15 days per year.
So 30,
Help
so 30.
clarify for me the maximum accumulation and/or
We don't use
the
it.
maximum rollover. Because are those different currently, or are they the same?
You're referring to the paragraph underneath this?
Well, I'm looking at, for example, the table
Yes.
on page 11 in the middle.
Yeah.
The maximum accumulation or number of days went from 5 to 15,
Yes,
which of course, I think that makes sense if you're trying to save up for a longer vacation, especially if you're being given that number of days. My question, however, would be, and maybe it's someplace else, maybe it did or did not change, is that the same number used for maximum rollover when the year ends, from 1 year to the next? Or is that number lower?
that, I think that is a different, that's a little further on.
Okay.
But yes, it's the same number, but the rollover is a little different.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll be talking about, let's say, I have 2 weeks every year, and I don't use my 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about what happens to that 2 weeks.
That's right,
Okay,
that's right.
so I don't have to ask it now, I can ask it later.
All right.
I guess that we've added into the paragraph, the department head will use his or her discretion if there are circumstances to be considered to be sure there's adequate coverage. In other words, the whole police department can't take a vacation at the same time.
Unless they have COVID.
Or,
Well, that's not vacation.
yeah. Or Russ and I can't be gone at the same time, things like that.
No, and that, to me, that's some of the importance of all this vacation stuff is having the coverage. And that's why
Yes.
if you give people, if there's a lot happening, that's,
I mean, obviously, a lot of this is common sense.
Yeah.
But,
The my question is, the strikeout and removal was, vacation may be taken only if the request is approved by the board. And I think it makes perfect sense for example, the police department to go through the chief. Or, you know, Russ to go through you, et cetera. And it also makes a lot of sense for like, well, you're just making sure that there's, if you're out, that Russ is going to be there.
Adequate coverage.
But at the same time, that, it's saying that you would consider that, but maybe you say, well, I know that Russ isn't feeling well, and I'm gonna take my vacation anyway, and then we have no coverage. Not saying that you'd actually do that, but maybe a future person might. Is there any benefit or appropriateness to saying that any vacation from the chief or head or whatever of a given department needs to be approved by the board?
I guess one of the reasons why we thought that it was appropriate to do it the way we added it, and I see your example, and I'm not
Because
sure.
I don't think any of our current
Right.
employees would ever have a problem with this,
I'm
but
trying to get the select board out of the business of managing
yes.
the
And thank
day-to-day
you.
activity.
Yeah.
And you do have department heads that you're paying generous salaries to.
That's right.
That's their job to ensure that. Now, I just hope that there wouldn't be someone that if something were going on, you know, unless it was, I don't know, trip of a lifetime, maybe you would go. I mean, there's always gonna be instances you go to the board for some reason, to ask. But I think that was our idea, is to,
But the
See,
coverage
we
is
could-
there in here to more or less, unless there was some circumstance that we couldn't come up with a plan or solve the problem, you would have to then come to the board and
Right.
say, hey,
and I don't think you've really heard from us that we don't, you know.
no,
we
no,
have a
you
coverage
work out and you do
problem.
your job
Yeah.
and then you cover each
That-
other.
yeah,
Correct.
that-
We had a board before, okay, years ago, that wanted to know everything that was going on and so forth. And the board was circumventing the people that they had in charge of the departments
Micromanaging.
excessively. Okay, which we've had, and it's not just here. That's why it's in here, and it's the same thing, if there's a problem, you go to the immediate supervisor and work up. So right now, we only have, we'll say, full-time town administration, and then the police department. Okay, you should be limited on certain things that you have to make decisions on. You're paying this group over
That's
here,
right, that's
that
right.
group to take care of it.
Yep,
So that's why we put that in there.
There may be, I mean, we could do a little wording change that the department head will use his or her discretion, if there are any circumstances to be considered, to ensure that there will be adequate coverage.
You know, actually, I had only read the first added portion, and then went on, so I think you actually did cover that. Because after review and initial approval by the department head, that was where then the striked out part was.
Yeah.
But you've added there that there is adequate coverage. And so, whether that's the department head or somebody else, there would still have to be adequate coverage. So I think that actually covers the situation that I brought up hypothetically, so
Yeah.
that's good.
The, page 12, again, it reverts to the part-time employees, for sick leave on a prorated basis, considering work schedule. The next paragraph is where I differ from other of my esteemed members. Although they have a point, and that is when you're leaving town's employment, the recommendation is to pay 1/3 of the accumulated sick time on record
when you leave.
when you leave the town's employee. Every year for the auditors, I do a compensated absences balance for them. And we have a trust fund which accounts for that you put money in to cover if you had someone leaving who had a lot of accumulated finances off, owed to them. The committee felt that it gave the employees an incentive not to be using sick days just to use sick days, and I agreed with that. Sick days, and I'll get on my soapbox, but is a benefit and not an entitlement. It's a great benefit when you're sick to be able to stay home, and we want people to stay home if they're sick. However, some people convert sick days to vacation days. And I don't know if we're ever gonna solve that problem, but that's where we've gone. Do you wanna say any more about that, Phil?
I do, because I'm on the other side of that, only because having been here so long, when I got hired, we got a day and a quarter a month, you could build up to 720 hours, which is 18 weeks. And if you retired from here, from the town of Webster with 15 years of service, you get paid for a third of it. So 6 weeks pay you get, which in my mind is cheap money to keep a good employee, I'm not saying I'm good, but to keep an employee, here for that long, and to not have to keep on hiring other people to train them and stuff. And it's also this, paying that out is cheaper for the town than paying the person at the time to take the sick time if they're not sick, and also to pay somebody else time to have to cover that shift. So, and it's something that we do budget for, and it's cheap money, if you have someone stay a long period of time, and it's typical in, of course, the public sector, they do that, they all have big buyouts and stuff, and the town of Webster doesn't really have big buyouts, but there's something there.
Now, you mentioned, one of the things that I was thinking about in questioning this, in that it sounds like the old policy had two requirements for that. One was 15 years of service and the other was retirement, as opposed to
Just leaving.
this is written for any amount of time and just leaving. Was there discussion about that difference and whether it made sense as we want to keep them for a long time, so let's make it a retirement benefit versus, we want to keep them for 2 or 3 years benefit?
So the old policy, of course, that was back in 2001, beginning of 2001 when I got hired, was being here for that period of time and retiring from here. And then it went away back in 2018 or 19, that you got a half a day a month and you can only accumulate so many days and you get nothing if you leave. It doesn't matter the reason for leaving. And so now, of course, we're talking 20 years later, so we're trying to keep up, and that's one of the reasons for changing these, to keep up with the times and the competitiveness of other towns and stuff. So that's how we came up with what we did. We didn't go back up to 720 hours of sick time. I think we went to 60 hours, or 60 days?
You did, yes.
60.
Yeah.
Okay.
More or less, you're not getting all of it if you
You're
leave,
not
but you'll
getting
get a third
everything.
of it.
Yeah.
I mean, and I understand where you're coming from, and
Yeah.
I would totally agree from, a business standpoint.
Yeah.
60.
See, some places, had it, your last 2 years of employment before you retired, what you accumulated for sick time, as long as you didn't take any days off within the last 2 years, we'll say you were able to accumulate 25 days. I'll just pick a number here. If you didn't take any time out sick within that last 2 years, you got paid for the full 25 days. But the previous 18 years before that, you could use every sick day that you had. And then the last 2 years, you just weren't sick, you come in when you were dying.
Right.
Believe me, we toyed with a lot of this stuff.
That's a tough one.
It is.
I don't have any specific questions on the recommendation. I think I understand what's being recommended. Do you have any questions on that?
No, I get it.
Okay.
And I think one of the things, you know, we're on the board here, the members here, and I said this during the thing, most of the changes, if not all of them in here, are geared towards attracting and keeping good employees that we have. This stuff in here doesn't affect me. I've been here so long that I'm not getting any more sick time, I'm not getting any more vacation time, so it doesn't affect me.
Yeah, and you get dust on yourself.
So I'll ask the question coming from the tech sector. One of the things that we commonly have seen, instead of dealing with sick time, vacation time, holiday time, is here's a bucket of flex days.
Paid time off, we'll talk about that too.
This is just unpaid, this is just paid time off, that's it. You get it approved, or if you don't have an approval, then you show us that you were sick, is kind of the way that it's done in most tech industries now. What's kind of been the thinking or discussion, what's like the overview of how the committee looked at that, decided to stay with what it is and so on?
Well, I like the paid days off idea, because it takes a lot of the paperwork away from it that, again. However, we thought that it probably, the other towns kind of go in the same type of arrangement, so we decided not to change that. And I'm probably missing something, but if I am.
No,
Yeah.
we had discussed the bucket.
Yeah.
This is the number of maximum hours you can have, whether it's vacation or sick time. You use it that way. But we thought that this was the easiest way on the whole thing. And then also, because it included the vacation time, if you want vacation, you have to write the head of your department or the immediate supervisor, I want vacation at that. With that bucket of hours and stuff, I thought some of us thought it created more headache at times.
Okay.
So we were just trying to alleviate headaches.
Sounds good.
The next thing on that was page 12, still on page 12, bereavement leave. The old policy was 3 days, and we asked that to increase it to 5 days. And because, you lose a spouse, you lose a child, 3 days, it's really not gonna cut it.
Agreed.
And it speaks to what type of, it's a close family member.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not my uncle that lives
Right,
in Maryland.
that you haven't seen for
Yeah.
60 years.
Well, some people would think that about their spouses. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I
I'm
agree with
teasing,
you.
I'm teasing.
Yeah, one sleeps out in the garage and the other in the house, yeah.
So.
But yeah, we put 5 days.
Page 19 was an update because of that dental insurance, adding the dental insurance. We also would like to eliminate the last sentence. There's one person that works for the town that this kind of applies to, but it's going away eventually. And I'm not saying anything to that person, but I don't think we need to keep in the policy the date that,
Well, because either they're covered under the old policy or they're covered under the new
that's
policy.
what we thought, yeah. Page 30. That's the paragraph that deals with personal cell phones. And as you know, we do use our personal cell phones to log on to the computer system with the double authentication.
And what is the purpose of that, when you say that? Is that way it's able to trace to somebody's,
When we go, you mean to the double
Yeah.
we go to sign on to the computer and we have our username and our password. Now there's an additional step that it pings your cell phone and you have to approve Yes.
Oh, kinda like when
It's-
you do the
you-
bank or whatever,
Yeah.
Right,
okay, yeah, okay.
it's a separate
Yeah.
identification code. They send you a
Yeah.
passcode to type in so you can get in.
And you just don't want people to say, well, I didn't want my personal
Well,
cell phone to be
I
done
wanted
with
it
that.
understood that people are using their cell phones.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a security measure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I understood that part, I just, the fact that people just need to understand it,
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
The next paragraph, computers, email, and internet use, we had no issues with that, except it doesn't pertain to the police department because of confidentiality of their work, nature of their work.
So
So in
I,
other words, their computer may contain something on some case they're working on or something that is not.
so I completely agree with that wording, and it shouldn't be reviewed by like the town, like I shouldn't be able to go in and just look at Phil's system. It's probably already in a police policy, but I would assume that there's a policy, or there should be, where, for example, the chief could go look at Phil's computer if there was reason to. Is that correct?
There is.
Okay, thank you.
The same is true for workplace searches. And again, I'm sure the police SOPs counts for that. Page 32. Roy, I'm gonna let you do that one,
That's the Roy Fanjo page.
Which one's that? Oh, the layout.
the layout.
Yeah, it just,
Sorry, I just
That's
wanna
all
go
right.
back one second to the searches.
trust me.
Would, would it make sense, obviously, there's confidentiality there, but maybe there is a reason that town thinks that a search should be done of, say, Phil's system, but then, obviously, we shouldn't look at it. Would it make sense to have wording that would say that we can request that the chief look for
Well, this says it here-
specific things?
This isn't here that you guys, basically, the town can't come and do it.
Right.
It doesn't mean that the department head can't. He has full control over the department. He can search any of our stuff there, he can search the computer just because he's familiar with all of that.
Right.
And there's also steps in place if it was suspected that it was the police chief, then we would request an outside agency, the Attorney General's office or the Sheriff's office.
Okay.
Yeah, that policy's always been in place.
Well, yeah, but, so
You know,
my.
I'm
But
talking,
for example, we wouldn't necessarily know that there is something suspicious or fishy going on with one of the police's systems. Or maybe we as, and or our IT company see,
Yeah.
well, there's some funny networking stuff coming out of his system. So maybe we should have some sort of language that allows us to tell the chief, you need to go look at this system, because he's allowed to and we're not. Like, maybe there's something there that we should look at.
I don't know if you
but
need
that's-
language on that or not. I think you would be able to turn around and say to
Certainly, we
Lieutenant
could
Mitchell,
request it anyway.
I think there's a problem down there. I'm not gonna name names, but you're not talking to the chief, you're talking to Lieutenant Mitchell, okay? I think there might be some problems and, you know, check your systems or whatnot, then it's up to him, because you might have a suspicion against the chief.
No, really, that wouldn't even be true, because they should
Yeah.
go, you know,
No,
they should go to the town attorney or to the
Yeah.
sheriff or something to say, hey,
Yeah.
where do I go with this? 'Cause
Yeah,
this is what's
correct.
going on.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
An outside
Yeah, I
agency.
think we'd
Yeah.
contact the attorney.
That's
Go for it.
any segment of our municipality, correct?
And what,
I mean, are we talking about the library? Are we talking about administrative services? Are we talking about anything?
No, that's in the
Not just
policy in a different
necessarily
spot.
focused on law
That's a
enforcement.
different, the
Yeah.
PD falls under a different umbrella, let's put it that way, because of what they handle.
Thank
As the
you.
library does.
yeah, so all of what we talked about are things that we can currently do.
Yeah.
But the language isn't there to exempt the police department, which they really have to be, because we're not allowed to go after and look into the confidential caseload, for example.
Right.
I understand this is not a time for public, but I just have one question. Recognizing how significant this is, we're looking at 32 pages at this point in time, is that correct?
The policy
Correct me
has,
if I'm
we're on
wrong.
page 32.
approximately 32 pages
yeah.
of some sort of policy
Yeah, yeah.
pertaining to this town. At this point in time, I just have one question. We're talking about significant intricacies as well as policies that are going to be applied to the operation of this whole community. In saying that, I understand, and it was mentioned by you, in my mind, as an inhabitant in here, it's significant to me. How does an auditor look at this in regards to risk management? As applied to all.
This is not part of the audit.
Is that because of policy of the audit? Subsequently
We
going
hire the
back to.
auditors, they do financial
Subsequently going
auditing.
back to at least the 70s in regards to how we audit the town of Webster? And the criteria for an audit?
I don't know about the 70s. I wasn't here then.
You could
But-
even
but-
go to the 90s.
But normally your
You could go
personnel
to each
policy
and every
does not
year
involve the auditors.
right now,
Yeah,
as we look at an auditor.
yeah.
As you know, this is significant to me. I've brought it up several times in regards to the operations of this town. And
This
auditors,
policy is a policy that the select board is in charge of.
correct. And
And
subsequently, there's a significant amount of risk management in the operations of this town as a whole. Correct?
So let me try to clarify here, and maybe this will help you, maybe it will help us.
Hopefully.
But when the auditors look at things, the
What is their
auditors.
criteria?
the
Their
auditors-
criteria is very minimal if in fact you look at the policy between our auditor that has been on staff and contracted for a significant amount of years
So I will
with
say
no
that they've never been
deviation
on
to their
staff.
contract.
They've never been on staff. They have been, it has been the same firm that's been contracted for many years. That is absolutely true.
Their contract,
but-
and the
but any
wording
auditor-
has never changed. What I'm hearing Phil say right here is there have been significant changes in regards to certain unemployment, sick days, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not quite sure that Webster's policy in regards to our auditors has been updated to include all the significant changes, intricacies that have happened in all the departments in the operations of this municipality over the years in regards to our auditors. Our auditors, from my understanding, as written in our town report, are not in compliance with FINRA rules. And they state that in their statement. In saying that, there is no way that there will ever be a reflection of factual figures to our townspeople and taxpayers in regards to the contract that is submitted. This has nothing to do with law enforcement. This is way bigger than that. This
So-
is a responsibility, unfortunately or fortunately,
So-
that needs to be looked at.
So let me go ahead and
By the
stop
select
you for
board.
1 second. I agree that we do need to be looking at the contracts and/or the particular auditors.
Have
and-
you?
And
I
looking
guess
at
my question
others.
is, have you, in the last 2 years, looked at your auditor's contract?
May I finish?
Absolutely.
So I absolutely agree that we need to be looking at those existing contracts, who it is, and whether we should be maintaining the same auditors over and over. We've actually talked in a couple different meetings about different ways and when and if we may want to be trying to do that. However, that and this being a personnel policy are completely unrelated.
But they aren't.
But
they aren't.
They are.
Because
The-
when this comes
nothing
to
in
town
this
meeting,
policy would
when
apply
this comes to
at
town
all
meeting,
to the auditors.
when this comes to town meeting, when everything, and please don't misunderstand me, I'm not being negative for any of the impact or significance of what their benefits are, of what their retirement is, or anything that's been presented here. But in saying that, if in fact our town significantly over the years has been consistently using the same in fact auditor to audit our books, right?
Okay,
Regardless of what policy is, which, please don't misunderstand me, but in regards to a corporation of a municipality this big, although it's small relatively, doesn't matter, it's big to each and every one of us taxpayers. You're asking for us to pay to operate this community.
correct.
We're also being billed by an auditor with an expectation that is very, very gray area. And so subsequently, I'm hearing the auditor looked at it, okay?
So
In my
the-
mind, an auditor, if in fact they were auditing me, or my books, or my business, or my private life, or I had hired them to actually look down to all my checks and balances, they better do their job. But if in fact you look at our overview, which is consistently and has been written in our town report over the years,
If
It is
you
a
actually
very
look at it,
gray
we've been
area.
making those
and
adjustments every
we are
year.
paying a significant amount to our auditor that states, right within their statement, they're looking at nothing other than is presented to them.
Okay, so
They're not
I'm gonna
looking
go-
at,
I'm-
they're not looking at poor Phil's
I'm gonna,
20, 30
Stop.
years. I
I'm gonna
apologize,
stop
I
you
don't
here.
know how many years you have actually serviced
excuse
this
me,
town.
excuse me. I'm gonna stop you here.
And what you're
because
entitled
thi-
to.
Because this is not auditing, this is not the-
Why?
affecting
Why is
the
that not
auditors.
auditing in our
And
contract?
while you have a point and a definite topic, that is not this topic. I would encourage you, if you wanna
So
continue.
if we were to
I
have a
would encourage
forensic
you-
audit,
I would
then the
encourage
criteria
you,
would change.
if you want to continue to talk about the auditor and auditing, to submit and get on the schedule so that we can have time and a agenda item for that with you,
I understand.
which we can absolutely do. But this is not that time, because this is not the auditor. What the auditor would do regarding a policy like this.
Please clarify for
is
me
to
what
make-
our auditor is
Regarding
contractually.
I'm not gonna go down the whole contract right now, we can do that at another point in time when we have the contract in front of us. What an auditor would do for a policy such as this, or a policy such as some of the ones that the library has, they are going to check off to make sure, A, that the said policy exists, and B, that
Who
the
is?
town has
Who is?
signed off
Are
on it
you
and
saying your
said that
auditor
they-
is?
Yes.
Because that is not in their statement and has not been for a minimum of 10 years, if in fact you read your town report.
They have actually put into the reports to us, at least within the past few years while I've been on the board, or about to be on the board, I don't remember which one. But within that period of time, they have provided us statements that say, for example, that the library's policy had not been reaffirmed recently enough. And so they are absolutely looking at the policies in that manner. Now, the content of the policy is entirely up to the board and not the purview of the auditor. So what
Absolutely,
the
it's
auditor
what's submitted
checks
to them.
is to make sure
Whereas
that it
these guys have
exists
been
and that we have signed off on
expeditious.
it so that we can be held accountable for it.
These guys have gone ahead and they've updated their policy. Law enforcement, apparently,
They
in
have
our
not.
town has updated the thing, they're asking for what they're getting, absolutely. I wanna be rest assured that our auditor is accountable for also looking at this and giving them that.
The auditors don't give it to them. They
No,
are,
you do.
the committee that
But
was
the
put together,
auditors are
that
that
does
second checks and
include
balances.
one law officer, is giving us recommendations as a board to look at the policy. We will then discuss and look at those recommendations, make our own suggested changes and/or questions and comments, maybe meet with the committee again, then go through and discuss with legal, then get that all sorted out before there would be any sort of enactment of new policy. This is not them writing, this is how we're gonna do it now. This is a recommendation from an entire committee that currently has 3 of those committee members sitting in front of us to give us that recommendation.
Subsequently,
Please continue with.
Okay. On page 32, layoff, it says a department head with the approval of the select board may lay off a regular employee because of material changes in duties or organization or shortage of work or funds. We had a recall portion to that in previous policies here. It was not in the last one. So I asked for it to be put back in. It says, if the situation that caused the layoff were to change, the town would recall the laid off employee. This happened years ago, and the town did not recall the person that was laid off. That person did get another job. I brought it up. Hey, that person's a sergeant now in another department. They don't want to come back here. I said, doesn't matter. Our policy is you're supposed to notify, ask, do you want to come back? And I think it's only fair that if you did, we'll say, I was the custodian and you laid me off, and then a year later, you got the funds back, you know, instead of hiring Phil to clean the toilets, you should ask me back, hey, Roy, you know, within a reasonable length of time. I'm not saying 5 years or something like that. But we discussed it. I think you should have a recall policy.
Generally, there's something for, if you're doing a layoff instead of just a termination or a.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's a layoff, because what happened
Is that
before.
fair? Yeah. And this is
you know,
specific to
There were
layoffs,
major
so that
budget
makes
cuts
sense.
and stuff, and some people did get laid off.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just asking, you know, for protection to
Okay.
your committee is, right?
say to some, excuse me?
Your committee is?
Yes,
Thank you.
we're just asking for a recall policy, that's all.
And to be clear, the committee is chaired by Dana, our town administrator, as we as the board requested him to do, and gave several suggestions for people, at least all of which, and I think additional to that, he reached out to ask if they wanted to be on the committee. And so the entirety of the committee has met at least several times. I'm not gonna guess on the number.
We've met
Maybe-
5 or 6
maybe
times,
at least
I would say.
minimum
And so
5
this is
times.
the culmination of their effort to present to us at this time.
So we were expecting that the board would take this and read through it, to make suggestions to us. We'd be glad to meet with you again. And then, once we have something that can be sent to legal, we can do that.
Legal and insurance, right, in regards to risk management?
So we do have a risk management committee.
Absolutely.
I believe
I would
that's
expect no
Rob that's
other.
in charge of that.
It's, no, it's
currently?
Dave Collins.
Collins, okay, thank you. So they would be the ones to talk to about if you want to deal with the risk management side of things. They have an entire operations book, and they go through that and sign off on it and so forth.
And we also have support from the insurance primary.
Yes, and that goes, that's what
Insurance
goes,
being bonding, right?
yeah, that's what goes through
Being
and
what?
deals with.
Bonding,
Being Dawn.
shall I say it
Bonding,
again?
bonding.
Bonding.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
yeah.
bonding.
Insurance being bonding,
It didn't make sense, don't.
correct?
It is part of the
So
insurance
a bonding
policy.
is an insurance policy, just
Yes.
so I'm clear.
The insurance policy does insure the town for bonding purposes.
So when we speak of bonding, that is in fact an insurance policy, correct?
Bonding's an insurance policy.
Thank you.
All
I'm
right.
sorry I didn't hear you.
Oh, it happens, no problem. I just wanted to be clear on myself.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I want to schedule said work session to go over this, but I don't want to try and rush anything. Normally, I would want to rush into this so that we get it taken care of as soon as possible. Due to the personal issues for D, I don't want to do that. I would suggest that we, so that I don't forget, can you put scheduling that work session on the agenda for next meeting?
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
Next one.
Our next meeting. And then we can schedule it
To
from
talk
there.
about the scheduling.
Yeah. Because this is not something that I want to sit on the back burner and get forgotten about or not taken care of, especially since we've asked you all to do so much work,
Absolutely.
so.
And they're of value to our community.
Do you have any further questions for them?
No, I think I think we've got some stuff to
Mhm.
talk about, and then we can come back and.
Do any of you representing the committee have any final thoughts or comments that may or may not be listed here that you wish to say?
No, I think we included everything we
All right.
we had
I
talked
think
about.
we've covered it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
for
thank
your
you.
work and for the presentation.
John Clark was also involved in this.
Yeah, there were, let's see, was it 6 people or five, 6 people on the committee?
We ended up, I think, with 4, because I couldn't get some of the people you suggested to
Okay.
serve.
Who are
Several
they?
of the people said no, okay.
Who are they? Just so I have my notes.
Who was?
Who were on the committee? The
Oh,
four?
on the committee was
Yes.
myself,
Mhm.
Roy Fanjoy, Phil Mitchell, and John Clark.
Thank you.
I must be sitting in a place that exercises.
Maybe
I need my,
I think
I
it's
need
the
the
fan.
miracle here.
All right, thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, since we don't have our other appointment, oh, this is the second, okay. Then that moves us on to old business, town-owned properties.
Thank you. I have a couple things in town-owned properties. One thing that I wanted to, I didn't really specify, but you probably got an email from me the other day regarding the Pillsbury Lake properties. We've owned some of those lots a very long time, and if I do the normal way that we calculate what we're asking for a minimum bid, they do come out somewhat substantial, although I think if you're merging these lots with your own lot, they're not all that out of whack as far as price goes. But I just wanted your opinion, if you wanted me to continue using these prices, which was, again, the amount of money that was owed the town at the time of tax deeding, plus the amount of money that was lost due to not being taxed.
On those amounts, what, you have a concern that the property's not worth what is owed?
I think that I'm wondering if these amounts might be too high to be able to sell these properties.
'Cause they're so
With the goal
tiny.
being that you get these back on the tax rolls. But I do understand, in some of these, if you're merging lots and you've got a bigger lot, it's probably, obviously, a good buy.
I was gonna say current Pillsbury Lake lots are going for 29,000 apiece. So, just for context, vacant lots.
So you have, like, the first two, I've grouped them here.
Which the largest chunk in these that's showing merged is at about 14, so that's still half price.
Right.
And that's a
That's a
bunch of
5 acre
lots.
piece.
So, Yeah, and that's a lot of lots.
That's
So
a lot.
It is.
I'm under the inclination that we should do it at these rates, and if abutters say no, then it should be put up to general auction. What's your feeling?
Well, I feel like that's what's fair,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, that's what I was asking. The other issue here was the quotes that we have received for cleanup at 874 Battle Street. I have received 2 quotes. And that's your cheat sheet if you'd like, and those
Oh.
are the quotes.
Oh, go ahead and open them. Okay.
All right, first quote is from Harold French in Canterbury. To the Board of Selectmen, having viewed the house, the town-owned house at 874 Battle Street in Webster for a bid of cleaning out, I would like to propose to you, I would pay $2,000 for salvage rights of personal property in the home prior to removal of trash. Said payment to be made upon acceptance, removal within 7 days of payment. So that's not quite what we asked for.
No, cause say that again, is he saying that we have to remove the trash, then he'll go in and take the stuff?
It says, I would pay $2,000 for salvage rights of personal property in the home prior to removal of trash. So I'm reading that, and again, we'd have to check this, Harold's not here for me to ask. If he means he would go into the house and remove things that he wanted to remove.
But
not the
oh, but
trash.
prior to the trash. So he'd go in there and he'd say, I want this,
Yeah.
and that, and leave us whatever he didn't
Right,
want.
you might
Okay.
wanna just look at that, make sure I'm telling you right. The bid was
Yeah,
the quote,
to me, this is not a bid for cleanup. This is I would like to take $2,000 worth of the value and take anything that I find of interest, is the way that I read it.
the next quote we have is from Tara Gunnigal here in Webster. Board of Selectmen, we would like to submit a quote for the cleaning out of debris from the town-owned property at 874 Battle Street, Webster, New Hampshire. Removal of all garbage, debris strewn about the entire house, stairs and attic, partial barn area to allow safe passage through the building. Removal of any or all food attractant in the house, especially the kitchen area, to prevent further damage from vermin, rats, mice, squirrels, skunks, etc. Pick up good items strewn around the floor and place in a safe place, such as on tables. Webster Board of Selectmen will supply the necessary dumpsters for the job and proper entry areas to remove all debris. We have worked for years with Barb Mackey, 12 Hollings Drive, Webster, for Caldwell Banker and Country Houses, cleaning, removing debris, and renting the house for public showing on the real estate market. And then she gives the telephone number. Our fee to do the work you require to safely let bidders walk through is $7,500 to include all of the above, and we guarantee satisfaction. Thank you for your consideration. Tara Gunnigal, John Pearson.
So 7,500 to take care of everything? Is that
No.
kind-
So that would-
No,
To get rid of the
debris,
But that's not swept clean.
okay.
Right.
So what would you see being left?
But any of the furniture that's not broke and none of that stuff is staying.
Okay, so
This is what Dana had said to us when we
We're
walked,
picking up the trash.
when we walked through the house. He said, you know, the furniture gets left, he wants all the rubbish, I mean, it's this deep.
no, I saw some pictures.
And they want us to be able to walk in,
Basically,
make
I'm
it
trying to
safe
make
for
it safe.
people, get in and
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Anything that looks valuable, leave it.
I mean, it wouldn't be swept clean, but there wouldn't be anything on the
So
floors.
people can be able
the
to walk in
stairs.
there safe.
It's
Right.
not gonna be just a trail.
Right.
It's probably gonna take about at least 4 40-yard dumpsters. The stuff in there, knee deep.
But, I mean, they took drawers out of, and just threw them on the floor and, but, you know.
Did you
There's some
Did that
furniture in
bid-
there, bureaus, they're
That
not.
bid included time
It did not.
versus French's 7 days?
It did not
Just
include
asking.
time, yeah.
But they're so different because,
Well,
One is
He's-
really
he's
doesn't
just-
address the.
yeah, he's just going and taking anything that he thinks.
Yeah,
We know
yeah.
what he's doing, because we know what he does.
Yeah.
My question here with the French bid is, because of the way that it's worded, is it, in saying prior to removal of trash, is he saying prior to someone else removing the trash? Or is he saying to take what I want and then remove all the trash?
That's what I was trying to go through, but it's really not what we
Because if he's paying
really
us,
looking for.
if he was paying us $2,000
Yeah.
to empty the house,
Personal
then
property
we
of
can
removal
count
before
two thou-
trash.
Then we can remove $2,000 worth of value of the house
Yeah.
for what we can keep.
But that's not what
and-
he's saying.
And put it, but I don't think
No.
that's what he's saying.
No, he wants to be able to go in,
Can
take
I
what
say something here?
he's valuable. Yeah, you've been in there.
I have, well, my understanding was, part of the goal was that, to get it so that people could walk in there, so that the historical society could look at the stuff,
Yes.
versus having an auctioneer take the stuff.
No, agreed.
So my point in that is, it's hard to tell whether he's even making a good faith bid to clean it out.
He's just taking what he knows will get him money.
I
In a
read
nice,
that.
in a nice way, you know?
I read that he ain't cleaning it.
No, he's not taking, you're leaving all the stuff, the good
saw
stuff, and
nothing.
you're
There's
taking
no
the
way-
trash.
There's no way it takes in
She
there.
said 7,500.
All right.
I
I'm not
didn't see
recommending
anything
taking
of
an
any
advisement and let me
value.
speak with Mr. French about what
That
it means.
would be $1,000 a day. Break that down, 10 hours a day, that comes down to what, $100 an hour?
Even,
Times 2 people.
yeah, I
That's
suppose,
200.
I think I 100% know what he's saying. and
I think I do too.
Yeah, and I don't.
I'm pretty sure we know what
Yeah.
he's saying, but
He's gonna do that in
we can let him
7
clarify that he's not expecting to do the work that we
Yeah,
requested.
not unlike what they're gonna do, you know, in which, to
And
be
that's
honest,
what
that
I had
price is
asked
very
for,
reasonable.
because we had the secretary.
Very reasonable.
This one, yeah, this one is very
That's
obvious,
what- that's what I
straightforward,
Yeah.
and
reality. That's
I would be fine with having you clarify and then being able to vote with Dee on what we do.
Yep,
I think it's gonna be very obvious that he's
me
not
too.
going to clean it, but I'm okay with allowing him to say that. So thank you, especially thank you for being in town and wanting to help us take care
well,
of this problem.
exactly, yes, very much.
And hopefully that can get taken care of soon.
Yes.
Yes. I guess I'll give that back to you as well.
Okay, thank
Do we have any further town property?
Can I ask a
Portion.
quick question?
I do not.
So-
I am sending out 173 Cornhill Road. I've been waiting to find out about the trees. I haven't found out yet, but
Okay.
I think we'll work with that.
Well, we can certainly, he said he would mark them, so we can certainly set the bid up to be minus marked trees,
Okay.
if it's not already done.
Tara had a question.
Sorry, yes.
Well, from what I understand, he's paying you to, like, take salvage,
Mhm.
and we put in a bid to clean, so do we win the bid?
The question that we're going to allow him to clarify is whether his bid is to pay us to take salvage and clean, or whether he's just offering to take
Okay,
salvage.
because, as you can see, he had me type that up, And I asked him if he's cleaning, and I understand, I know that he called you today.
He did,
So, just to verify,
Yeah, he did.
but, he's told me he's not cleaning, he's just wants salvage, and he's paying you.
Well, so that's why, based on the way that it was written.
Right.
And the suggestion was to verify with him that that is indeed the case.
Okay.
And so then, after that verification, then we can make a good faith, appropriate response and
So that'll
decision.
come up at the next meeting,
I would assume so, yes.
just
I
so
would
I have
assume
it
so,
in my
yes.
mind. You need time for communication, okay.
Yeah, because he would do that, and then I wanna have D here as well for that, and since it's an open bid of that nature, and they're not, if they were exactly the same bid, and we could just say, you know, least expensive bidder, that'd be one thing.
Significant difference and
But,
different
yes.
criteria, I understand.
Correct.
And I don't know what the criteria for the bid was, sorry.
Yeah. Do you,
I believe it was posted to the website, as
Yes.
well as.
Yes.
No, I apologize,
That's okay.
I did not read that. Thank you, Dana,
Okay,
for
yeah.
putting it up, I'm sure it was out there. I did not, I'm just,
Yeah.
I just didn't know if you had an ETA on when you wanted to start on getting all cleaned out.
well, they have to bring it up at the next meeting after.
Right, but I just didn't know if it was gonna be a month, 2 months. I know there's no electricity in there, right?
I don't know the status of the utilities, Phil may know more on that.
No,
The-
there is no electricity.
The,
I would suggest that once you make your decision, I would like to see it cleaned up by the end of August anyway. so
Yeah,
that
we would, basically,
not
once we
dealing
make the
with bad
decision, we're
weather.
gonna want it to be,
So it's not
Go.
as short as 7 days, and yet you're gonna give a time limit of, say, 30?
Well, you want to.
Recognizing that today's what, the 18th, you're gonna have another selectmen's meeting before the
yeah,
end
well, so,
of
yeah,
July?
that'll be the first
So
meeting
that-
of.
that'll
that'll
have
be the
August,
first of
30
August.
days,
the next one,
time and
yeah.
manner.
Yeah.
30 days, does that work for you guys?
Yeah, I didn't know if you had, if you rushed for time or something like that.
I would say that once the decision is made, we would prefer it to be done as quickly as reasonably possible.
Yep, I understand that.
And try to provide to make that happen.
Okay.
Since, in that case, it would be also providing said dumpsters, which hopefully we can bring fast enough. And enough
Yeah.
of.
Right.
Yeah, and that's real right now.
So, yes.
So we'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
Yep.
Thank you.
And, let's see. So that brings us to old business, unless there's other town-owned property business?
No, that was the last item.
Okay. That brings us to old business digitization of records.
All right, so we have gone back to the drawing board. I provided a new letter from the committee. I don't know if you both had the opportunity to read it.
I have not seen
Mm-mm.
that.
Rachel,
It should have
I
been
didn't-
in your packet,
I didn't see it either.
but here's a copy of it if you'd like.
Oh, but was it on our email?
I hope so.
Okay, well.
So
See it.
this
They love
basically,
that email thing.
I went back and talked to both the companies again, because we found out that one piece of information wasn't exactly what they said they were saying it was going to be. And now I have changed the bids on that section to reflect what the costs actually are. And one is significantly cheaper. I've also confirmed with the other company, New England Document Systems, that when they mean one-time fee, they actually mean one-time fee. And they do.
And that's New England Docs.
Yes,
Oh, yeah, because the second, okay.
because now that's the accurate price
Because
for
the second
Inception
one is
Technology.
a per year price, okay. That's
Yeah.
not a one-time.
That is not a one-time.
Oh,
Right.
So that's why we went back the last time to reconsider it. So New England Document System was originally the second lowest bidder, but now with that change, they are now the lowest bidder. And there are also other perks that are added into this for their program, such as they don't have a limited amount of cloud storage. They store it in our server, and that means we can use whatever storage we have. We don't have to have the 10 hours of pluck, professional services for helping us develop some of their processes, because I will be able to be trained in how to set up all this stuff, and I'll be doing it myself. And with our subscription, that's part of what's covered. If I need help setting something up, I can always call them and ask about it. And that also covers our maintenance. And that's $250 per year per license, so I calculated it 4 or 5 licenses. And I have the bid specs with me as well, if you wanna review them. And the scanning was approximately the same price. There was really only a difference of a couple $100 between both scanning bids. And the benefit of going with the same company that does the scanning and the software is that they index it all for us and put it in and set it up for us the first time.
So we now have an accurate and revised recommendation from the Records Retention Committee in front of us. Originally, we were set to move forward and use the ARPA funding for
Right.
that. Have we gotten the second round of
We
ARPA
have
funding?
Not
not
yet.
yet, no.
Okay,
And I've already informed the vendor that we would be waiting until we got the second ARPA funding. And also the way this works is I've set up the bid with this company
Sorry.
so that we're not doing it all at once. We're doing it piece by piece. So we would start with my records, then move on to each different department. So if we decide we don't need a certain department later down the line, does it need to be digitized? For example, if the town clerk doesn't want a submittal or stuff to be digitized and wants to do it at a future date, we could do that.
Why?
And up to the department heads.
I like the staged approach because that allows you to, without making everybody have to try and train all at once.
Correct.
Be able to go through it and make it a much more
And also, some of the
natural
records
process.
are irreplaceable at this
Yeah.
point. And so one of the reasonings for doing it this way is that we can see how they handle some of the other documents before we get to some of these more valuable records. I don't think that's gonna be an issue with this company, because they have a very good track record, and they have an entire department that's just dedicated for archival work for older documents. So they have all the equipment, the machining, and the experts available, and they said they'd be willing to let us go and tour their facility and ask questions prior to us submitting the stuff to be scanned. So I think that's a good sign.
That's a
Can I
very
ask you a
good sign.
question? What is that company's name?
That's New England Document Systems.
Thank you. Is that how I would find them?
What? That's their name, so they're out of Manchester, I believe.
Thank you.
All right. I mean, do we need to still make a new motion to say that we're approving the
I mean-
document?
You might wanna
Stuff
do that,
through
or amend,
ARPA.
you know, your old motion. I think the first motion that you did, we didn't understand that yearly fee. When we discovered that, we suggested that.
Yeah, they said it was a one-time.
Well, and it's not to say that the other software does more stuff, so it's not in any means a worse technology. I just don't think it's as much of a bang for our buck, and it's a little bit more than we need for the town of Webster.
That makes sense. Do you have any questions?
Sure.
All right.
Well, if you wanna ask me about it later,
I
we
do.
can discuss it.
Well, in light of our past, where we have had significant documents misplaced, misaligned, things like that, is this vendor in fact offering a white paper, second copies, backups, hard copies to us?
So we get the digital copies, so the way
Only
it
the
works
digital?
is they do the digital and then they send us all records back.
Yeah, so-
Physically?
Yeah, so
Okay.
we would give
Thank
them the
you.
physical records to make a digital copy, and then we get both back.
Thank you. No, that's significant because supposedly there are a lot of copies of original documents sitting here, i.e. our charter, that matter.
And part of the whole
Those are
purpose,
something that-
part of the whole purpose of doing this is to make it all easy to find and even searchable. So-
Right, and then obviously, if there was a fire at town hall and we had something backed up in the cloud, we would have a backup.
Thank you. But we also want some sort of written or some sort of a white paper hard copy as well.
So
Are
I-
they as a vendor offering that, or would you be in fact,
With
I
the
understand
digital
you would
copies,
like
we
to
could
download it and
With the
this and
digital
that.
copies, we could make any number of other additional copies we would like.
but we thought that with our last administrator. Please don't misunderstand me.
So I would make a motion that we,
How much is this gonna
It-
cost?
I can get you all that pricing, if you wanna look at the bid spec. you
The-
can
I
get
do,
the bids.
thank you.
yeah, the initial license is 6,000 and the
6,000.
per year cost
That
is
much.
1250.
Included shredding in the bid, I'm gonna talk about that, because we don't want that, so those prices
With the
are-
number of seats that he's suggesting we may need. So I would make a motion that
That's
we
for
accept
software.
the Records Retention
The total
Committee's
bill.
new recommendation
Yeah.
with funding to come from the second round of ARPA funds.
All the records,
I second that.
and that's coming.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you, committee, and thank you, Russ.
Everything you have.
Yes.
Russ has done a lot of work. on
Yeah,
that.
you seem to really know.
Yeah. They made a motion.
It's not that much
Dave
in the reality.
to accept, and Marla was the second, obviously. There's only two people there.
Thank you.
And you did a great job, Russ.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
no,
will-
thank you.
My next step is I'm gonna call the vendor and then have them submit the final bids, or the final quotes, and then I'm gonna go
The
through
final
it with
quote,
them.
yeah.
And then I'll get back to the board with that and see if we can get a signature on it, once we get the ARPA funds.
Perfect.
What kind of funds?
ARPA.
ARPA, American Rescue Plan.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. We've gotten and used the first half that came last year. We're supposed to get the second half, actually, it was supposed to be showing up sometime this month, so.
Okay.
Very soon, we should get that second half and then be able to use that towards this.
Good.
And, well, most people will tell you that does not come from your taxation. What I will tell you is that does not come from local or property taxation.
That's just,
Yeah, but it comes
If you
from
pay
somewhere.
federal taxes,
It comes
that's
You
where
mean
it
it
comes
doesn't fall out of the sky?
from. So.
No, but the bottom line that you just showed me is not unreasonable in regards to the benefit that will.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think we get a lot of
Yeah,
benefits from having it digitally.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that also makes it really easy when someone makes a request. We can be like, well,
Right?
here's
it
the
is.
copy, and it's even easy in
I just
most
wanna make
parts,
sure
it's
that we have that
probably
white
easy to
copy and
email.
hard backup somewhere.
I mean, we
Floating
could-
here physically
That
somewhere.
is something we could probably bring up at the record retention committee of maybe finding a place off-site to store backup,
Yeah.
Physically,
physically, yeah.
like, right now, I have to go to the New Hampshire State Archives.
All right.
That's where I had to go to find the town's charter.
So moving on,
Okay.
that brings us to new business, which is code enforcement.
So that's gonna be a mixture of new business and old business. I just wanted to give you an update on, originally, I'm very pleased to say that we don't have to go to the town attorney, so we're not gonna need a motion to do that. Both people have gotten a hold of me and we're in the process of setting up the adequate ZBA applications to have them go through or to resolve the issues. So that's good. On another one, this is sort of old business, but one of the addresses was wrong on one of the forms. I noticed that I had two documents that showed different addresses, so I clarified it with the person, and now we have a correct letter to send out that Dana has for you to sign.
Okay, so this is the right address?
Yes, that is the correct one. So mostly good news.
That is very
That's
good news.
awesome news.
All right. And does that cover it for code enforcement?
And that's it.
Awesome.
We got a clock.
Do we have
Behind you.
correspondence?
What's always on the side?
No, you've already handled the correspondence,
it?
which was the meeting house meeting.
Okay.
Oh, it was always on the side? What the heck? It was-
Before we go to public
Thank you.
comment, there was correspondence that you were expecting to have, but then we're not going to. Has that all resolved itself? Are we expecting that we'll see something at our next meeting or have an appointment?
If I think I understand what you're talking about, no, and you will hear more,
Okay.
yeah.
Can I raise my hand now?
Yes,
I'm
now it is
hearing that
time
you're on
for
to public
comment.
Now, this is the primary reason that I came in here tonight, because you know that I'm just so passionate about it. And I have reiterated numerous times at public meeting and beyond about my concern and my love for this community. So, in saying that, as you know, every single year, there seems to be a proposal in the budget that $500 goes toward the Panacook Community Center. Right? I'm sure that you've all
I
heard
believe-
me
yeah.
and my mantra, years and years, asking for that, to be applied instead to Webster. Well, imagine my surprise yesterday when I saw in the public news, in the Concord Monitor, that now the Boys and Girls Club of Concord is going to take over the Panacook Community Center.
Mhm.
Well, I'm not quite sure that that's in Webster's best interest in light of going forward for our beautiful community and our small town aspect and sustaining our small town culture, that we want to participate continually with our $500. And I would just like this board to consider to not even recognize that this year in the budget.
I believe we
You
actually
removed it at
already
town
have that.
meeting, yeah.
You know, that we removed that and it's not to be paid. And that line item has been removed from the budget.
Right. In saying that, why are we not initiating a Webster Community Center? Or some fund thereof? You know, like the Isabel Anderson Fund, that always was for general purposes. As a matter of fact, if in fact you and I go 30 feet that way, Isabel Anderson built that building, not this thoroughfare, but that building. And she gave back significantly here to our small town.
So
Whatever that
there
fund
is an
put
Isabel
in.
Anderson fund. It still has money in it, but I can't give an exact amount, but
Yeah.
it's somewhere around $2,000 or so. So it's not a lot.
Imagine that, it wasn't even available for a couple of years.
But the concept of a community center is something that has come up, I think, every single time during discussions while I've been on the board, at least once during the year.
Yeah.
And everybody likes the idea, but also doesn't like the fact that if we start building a community center, we have to staff it. We have to actually have the contributions to construct it. We have to have land to construct it on. We have, like, there's a lot involved and it's actually really expensive. And then it's a really
But do we know that?
expensive continued expense.
But do we know
Because you're dealing
that?
with insurance as well.
Do we know that?
Do we know what?
Do we know that that's actually going to be that way? Or is that a projection?
Was a lot more than the $500 that we gave, of course. You know
Exactly.
that. You know that, of
And
course.
I know for a fact I've stood up for 5 years consistently asking, there would have been $2,500, right? Had they chosen to apply that. In
But-
saying that, right here, physically, behind this building, there used to be a huge barn that was a dance hall. That was, in some senses, a community center. This was our downtown, okay? There used to be a huge barn. If you were to look out that middle window, there was a huge dance hall that many people in town realize and recognize. So we all, maybe we don't, I shouldn't speak to it that way. Historically, there used to be a gas station right here in the building that is in fact still standing here, that's now subsequently a residence, right? Right beyond that, in the opening, where you see kind of an overgrown little opening there, that used to be a huge barn in the dance hall. That would have been like their community center, and many people remember it as that. And they're alive today. I mean, like, they grew up sitting in the station wagon while mom and dad were in there dancing and square dancing and blah, 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 blah. Before we had this addition in regards to the Grange Hall as well as the Methodist Church or Community Church, whatever. That
So,
was.
I guess my question for you then would be.
What do we have for
what do you-
community? We have
what
an
do you
identity crisis
What do
here.
you consider to be a community center, or what kind of services
A
do you
resource
expect out
center.
of it?
What about a resource center? Like,
Because
here's
there's-
the deal. There are people, especially in light of, let's flash forward, and I'm only just kind of putting my opinion out there, I understand that. So now, I understand I've stood up for the last 5 years asking for this. Okay, now let's flash forward to gas crisis, everybody's budget changing, this and that in the last 2 years. You can look at COVID, you can look at all the significant changes in humanitarian change, okay? In saying that, we have nothing here in our town that facilitates the needs of basic humanity. Not even a friggin' store. We are a food desert. And I brought that up. I don't know that, Phil, I'm not gonna name you, but someone was sitting on the disaster thing, when I did the FEMA thing, when the lady from FEMA was doing her long-term thing, it's like, who are we? I'm like, we have an identity crisis, we're a food desert, really? I mean,
So-
we have nothing.
So if you look at something like the Pennacook Community Center, the primary things that it was kind of geared
Initially
toward
missioned
and
for.
used for has been basically before and after school care. And that obviously requires staff. It has also been used for
It's not our
food.
job as a town.
Right, so, but again, if you're talking about community centers, a community center doesn't fix that we don't have a food store.
Well, maybe we need to call it a resource center. Maybe we need to recategorize what we're saving towards to take care of our community and the inhabitants within it. Because right now, let's be honest, ladies and gentlemen, we have nothing. And the only reason that a lot of people in this town seriously sustain is because their jobs take them out of here. Right? They get their groceries, they get their gas, they get all their life-sustaining things outside of here. What are we doing for our basic citizens, humanity? What are we doing here? We have nothing to offer. Don't misunderstand me. I get to go in and see Dana. I get to go in and see Michelle and everybody else, but really? If someone is in need, you're told, and as I've brought this up before, and I do not mind saying it again, perfect example, at the county level, we are taxed and feed for a public transportation system, okay? From the end of my driveway, if in fact my elderly neighbor did not have a car and needed to get to a doctor's appointment, she and I would have to strap on the gun to go at 4:30 in the morning to fight out the coyotes with our bagged lunch to walk 9 miles. 9 miles. I have clocked it from the end of my driveway to the closest public bus stop available for public transportation, of which we are feed for in our county fees. Okay? Which happens to be, just for clarification, Briar Park Apartments, which is the old Giant store in Pennacook. Okay? So, just so that you get a full picture, my neighbor and I get on the bus there, because now it's probably 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. She's probably got a doctor's appointment. I attend that with her. Then she gets, say, a prescription. She has to go to Walmart, which is up the street, fine, we're still on the same bus, great. Gets that done, we come back home, we strap on our guns again, because now it's getting dark, to walk the 9 miles back home.
Well, there,
Think about that, that is real.
yep. You are absolutely
That
correct.
is not servicing your community.
So you were
It's
absolutely,
great that somebody's bus comes down here, or everybody likes to say, oh, but the Boys and Girls Club comes, but the after-school program comes. Guess what? Not all of your community members are participating in the public school system. So 100% of your community is not available to all the services.
so,
We're not doing our job,
So
as
you're-
all of us. I'm just saying.
you're absolutely
I
correct.
love my community, you know I do. I get passionate about that. I stand up at town meeting, but I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start now, it's July.
So you're absolutely correct in stating that things like public transit from the, you're
We could
right.
alleviate that if we had a store.
You're
If we
right.
had some other, like a
Well,
thrift store,
okay.
shop, whatever. Why are we
So,
not working
so
together?
it takes someone to purchase, open, run, stock a store.
Absolutely.
I guess what you're, I guess what I,
$500 for the last 5 years that I've stood up would have started us with $2,500 minimum.
I don't think you can buy a lot.
I
for $2,500
understand.
bucks.
no, I know.
I've been advocating that for
Or
years. I'm trying to
pay a
cleanse
person's
it.
salary to even
I'm
minimum
not
wage for
being
more than a
rude
couple
when
of
I say
days.
that, I'm
And
just
I'm not-
continuing
and
to
I'll tell
say,
you right now.
what about us, you guys? We have an identity crisis. You know, I understand
don't
we
know
have
what
all
you-
these things that we have to do, but what about us?
Well, what do we, I guess, as, an entrepreneur, 'cause
Yeah.
you are an entrepreneur.
Yeah, every
Yeah,
single one
that's
of
right,
us.
That's right.
We're all independent,
Ah.
we have to be here.
Well, true. You know
It's
that.
okay.
Somewhat living here, but, and your passion is awesome. I mean, it's kind of like supporting the Historical Society, to be honest with you. I mean, the fact that this town has something as beautiful as that is overwhelming. I mean, wouldn't we like to preserve this house up here personally? Personally, I wish we could make it into, or maybe we could make it into a community center. But the problem is, somebody would have to head fund it, somebody would have to get the money to come in, and somebody would have to help, because,
Please don't misunderstand me.
Because
I am
you're-
so sorry right now that leadership at the Historical Society is not looking at the opportunity, literally in their face, next door, to become a community-run store that is available to them, literally as we speak.
again, volunteers, though,
Many
unfortunately.
communities have done that. No, I have not heard that option even come up.
No, but see, but.
Many
That's who's
communities
running.
have done that.
So volunteers are
Right.
running things like the Historic Society, or even us, we're volunteers, we volunteered to put ourselves on the ballot. But,
I mean, it's
You could
cool
cut- you-
passion, I don't
Yeah.
disagree with anything you're
You
saying.
can-
We've talked about that for years, when we all love to have
So why
a
are
nice
we
store.
not,
I would
why are we
personally
not
find
being
it-
like a reflection of other communities and doing that for?
I would personally find it really amazing if somebody with passion like this
Hmm.
won a bid on that place and opened it back up as a tavern.
Yeah, I mean, it would be
Not
freaking
even,
awesome.
not
Like,
even a
make-
tavern,
bring it the
not
way
even a
that it
tavern.
historically was.
Please
Make
don't
that the
misunderstand
center.
me, but as far as brainstorming,
have everything.
and I know this is not the meeting to do it, Phil, but he knows approximately how many people need particular community service here, there. Why are we not giving that opportunity to some of the people that need to apply that in their
So
correction? Whatever.
I want to actually,
But anyway, I
wanna
just
try to
wanted to
help
put
you.
on the record that the Boys and Girls Club is now taking over Pennacook Community Center. I don't wanna see any,
we didn't give the money to them because they changed and it's no longer in the budget.
thank goodness. Thank you.
The,
Isabel
I
Anderson,
want to,
friend,
I want to suggest something to you.
I'm going to put on the warrant that we raise $350,000 for the Isabel Henderson Foundation.
So I sort of along the right lines, but instead of putting it into her fund, my suggestion for you is to channel the passion that you have for the community center, to actually write a warrant article,
I understand.
to do the community center with
understand.
the funding for it, and get the petitions and the number of people to do it. Let's put it on the,
Yeah.
on the back, let's put it there in front of everyone at town meeting.
Might be surprised.
I think we'll all be surprised, because I
Should
think
be
we
nice.
all, when it comes right down to it, although they're not sitting here, a lot of people love their community. They may not
Almost
participate in
everybody in
this
Webster
aspect
really
of
loves
it,
Webster.
but when it comes
We're
down to it.
very fortunate. We
They
really
do
are.
love their town. They just,
Absolutely.
don't participate in this manner.
So
So
I
that's
think,
what I came for public comment. I apologize, but I'm
And-
like,
and at least we can tell you that we already took care of half of that.
thank you.
And I would encourage you to write up a warrant article and get the
Oh, I'm sure.
signatures, so we get the petition up on there for town meeting.
Yes. Now, in saying that, I have one other thing for public comment. I know it's lengthy and long. You didn't expect to be here that long, Phil, but I brought this up here about a week and a half ago in regards to the bonding of our elected officials. And all I asked for was a list. So I just want to know that you guys have gotten me that list of the bonded officials. So what I did, you two were not involved whatsoever. I'm just reiterating, and I'm coming here in the public meeting. I had gone into the town office and I said, it's my understanding that any and all elected officials, right down to our trustees of the trust fund, blah, 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 whatever, have to be bonded. May I please have a list of the individuals in our town that are bonding? That's,
And is that like through our insurance?
I can provide that in the insurance policy, but
Again?
there are no names in the insurance policy.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Back to the auditor, back to the insurance, so this is what I'm speaking to. I understand I came in strong and you were like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
So you'll get her
But
that.
this is all
I
what
can
it's
do that.
pertaining to.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, Dana will
You
make
know,
sure you have a
and-
copy of that.
Ah,
You wanna just like give her a copy? of
right
her
down to my school board.
Primex.
Right,
thing.
no, right down to my
Sure.
school board
Yeah, that'll make it
official that
easy.
is
Sure.
elected in this town to represent me at the school board. That's,
All
so,
right.
thank you very much. Apologize, I didn't, but that was my public comment.
That is good. Kinda sort of public. Do we have any further public comment?
Chief, they're looking to you.
I have none
All right.
at the moment.
That brings us on to our signing and
Kim said
motions.
no. I know.
What do we have?
Got
You
some
have minutes,
Mhm.
draft minutes, and then I have some motions for trust funds for you. And I also have some documents for you to sign.
Trust funds.
Meeting stuff, there it is. So those were from July 5th. Yes, Tuesday, July 5th, because July 4th was a holiday, our normal Monday meeting time. And that was our normal department head meeting. That was actually a pretty quick meeting, too.
It was.
Do you have any questions, comments, or revisions?
Nope.
All right, I would move that we accept the meeting minutes for July 5th, 2022 as written.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. What do you got for us to sign?
Here is the motions for trust funds.
Oh, okay, we can do that first. That's probably the order it was in, too. Let's see.
Now, is this in compliance with SB 47? Just asking.
What is SB 47?
Oh, well, it's a legislative bill that passed last year
What does it say?
pertaining to trust funds.
It does not pertain to SB 47.
Does not.
No, I don't think this does.
I'd have to read it to tell you, because I don't know the contents of it.
Yeah.
In any case, I would move to request the trustees of trust funds issue a check to Mitchie Corp. For invoice 78177 in the amount of $7,600 for preparation of the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services permit for the White Plains Bridge replacement. These funds to come from the Bridge Improvements Capital Reserve Fund.
Just a question, when we got a quote from them, it was around 6,000 something, so is there an extra
The
here?
quote was 14 something.
Oh, 14, okay.
Yeah, this is half.
Oh, okay, good. Oh, yeah, it is, okay. Where did I have the 6?
I like the 6 better.
I know. Now that I-
Last time their last bill was 6,600, maybe that's
Oh,
where it
okay,
came from.
okay, all right, fair enough. I mean, I figured it didn't look like anything was out of order, I just thought I'd
Yeah,
ask.
that was
Okay.
why.
Okay, yes, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, I would move to request the trustees of trust funds issue a check to Fleece and Flower Farm LLC for invoice 6842 in the amount of $2,327.50 for road work on Deer Meadow Road. These funds to come from the Highway and Roads Capital Reserve Fund.
I second that?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Then I have, I didn't have you sign the payroll manifest at the last meeting, so I need you to do that. That was for the last payroll.
This fell on there?
We'll just scratch that. and then,
You're taking it hard tonight, kid.
That's why I don't come to these meetings.
Oh, come on, they're fun. Nobody got a raise in there, right?
Just me.
Thank you.
No, our policy requires that we have a review.
I know, right, I know.
At your last meeting, you approved this, taking advantage of the 3-year Primex plan.
Oh, yes.
But I need you to do a resolution to allow someone to sign that.
That's a true copy of the resolution. Oh, okay. And that's this, I believe. Oh, yes.
Primex being,
Yeah. Primex is, let's see, they actually say, it's the New Hampshire Public Risk Management Exchange.
so that would in fact be your insurance policies, bonding.
In short, it is the insurance as put out through, by, and for the state and used by just about every municipality.
So that would be insurance, i.e.
Yes.
bonding policies?
That would be where he would get
Yeah,
the
it's
insurance.
bonding.
That would be
It's
your bonding and
provides you
insurance
automobiles,
policies.
it's
Thank you for the
buildings,
clarification.
it's
And that's
liability.
Primex?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what is it that you want?
So I need, someone's gotta sign that, but they
Oh,
need your
gotcha.
permission to sign it. So, if you would like me to sign it, for example, I would need you to give me permission to do that.
I would move that we have our town administrator, Dana Hadley, be the signatory for Primex as the point person for the
Is he
town at
bonded?
this point.
I am bonded.
Thank
I
God.
second that.
Thank
All in
God.
favor?
Thank you, Dana.
And that's
Oh.
the end of mine. I would like to request a non-public session under 91A, section 2A.
Which
is
section is
personnel.
that? Personnel. All right.
So does that mean I'm the only one that has to leave?
I think it does.
I just want to be polite. I just want to be polite and
Depends on who the
procedural.
personnel is.
That's fine. So you all don't have to move.
Oh, I still have to move, but I'll lock the
But
doors.
listen, will someone come and get me when you reconvene? Wait, are you gonna reconvene, or you just guys
Yeah,
gonna
I think
stay
so.
out all
Yeah.
night?
So
Probably
the,
not.
as
Have a good
we,
night, Kim.
as we always tell the camera.
Is that,
when we
is that
do
what
it.
you're doing?
Yeah,
Which I kind of
as
like.
we always tell the camera, once we make the motion, which we haven't yet to enter that, is that we will immediately close the meeting upon exiting the.
They told me that before, years ago in this town, but that didn't always reflect what happened.
Well, we do
We
it.
promise
and
we
then-
wanna go
I'm
home.
not pointing anything, I'm not pointing anything to anyone.
All right, I
just
would move that
saying.
we enter non-public session
night.
under personnel.
Okay,
Okay,
I
and
second that.
All in
you
favor?
wanna turn the
Aye.
camera off so
And
I
the
can
time
go
is
off the door?
8:39. And of course, everybody watching that probably isn't yet, or still, we
I know
will
I should have been, I should have, but I'm comfortable.
immediately close the meeting